All right, ladies and excuse me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9 on this Thursday. And a lot of stuff moving on, a lot of stuff going on in the country right now. Of course, today, the big event for today is the Carter official, official funeral in Washington, D.C., which President Biden has ruled today a day of mourning, which just simply means a free day off for federal employees. So, congratulations to them who are sleeping in today. But the political leaders in Washington will honor the life of former President Jimmy Carter with a funeral service at the National Cathedral this morning. Carter, who had died on December 29th at 100, was the nation's longest living president, but only served one term in office after a pretty disastrous presidency. Today's event, I should say, marks the final public tribute to Carter following additional funeral services and ceremonies since last Saturday at the U.S. Capitol, the Carter Presidential Center in Atlanta, and his hometown of Plains, Georgia. He's had a lot of funerals. Following his national funeral service, the president's remains will be transported back to Georgia for a private ceremony and burial in Plains. So yet another funeral. That's one, two, three. That's 5 funerals. It's a lot of funerals. The funeral at the National Cathedral is part of the National Day of Mourning, which I just said, which President Biden declared in Carter's honor after his death. So, like I said, enjoy your day off, federal employees. Biden was a longtime colleague of Carter and will deliver a eulogy during the service, according to a White House official, which honestly couldn't be more fitting as president. The best thing to ever happen, I said this when President Carter originally died, the best thing that ever happened to President Carter's legacy is President Biden. The fact that we look at the 20th century, he had probably one of the worst, at least the top 3 worst presidencies, not the top 2 worst presidencies in the 20th century. And at least in recent memory, has always been the worst. And that has been usurped by President Biden as President Biden continues to roll down just a horrible, embarrassing path, really, as we talked in the last few days about releasing 9/11 terrorists, shutting off oil drilling. He's just doing everything he can I say Biden's handlers, his regents, as I like to call them. That's what they're doing. They're very upset. They're very upset about what's going on. They're very upset that he is that he lost the election, or that they lost the election. They can't rule Washington anymore. So it is the best thing that ever happened. Like I said, if the Carter family should be happy for anybody, they should be happy for President Biden. So I think President Biden delivering the eulogy is the most fitting. I could not think of a better person to do his eulogy. Just one failed president giving a eulogy over another failed president. I'm not going to speak ill will from him as a person, because I don't like speaking ill will of the dead. But again, from a purely historical view, Carter is just he is a moment in history of transition for our country. When our country was trying to get over the scars of Vietnam, the scars of a poor economy, of a lessening of us in the national realm. But without Carter, you could say there wouldn't have been a Ronald Reagan, who came in after, did a sweep in 1980, did even better in his reelection. So he kind of set the stage for Ronald Reagan, which I guess in that way, since he kind of forced people to Ronald Reagan because of his horrible way he ran the presidency, really just as a pushover in everything from the economy to foreign affairs. I talked about it on my show when he first died. His biggest accomplishment being, the Camp David Accords, which, we know now, as we can just see right now what's going on in Israel against Gaza, and in Lebanon, all of that. not really didn't really last that long. So it didn't help the situation. It didn't solve the situation. The only thing it did help was between Israel and Egypt. That's about it. So his legacy. Uh, Carter's legacy is one that's forgetful. I would say at best, and just going to be looked very poorly on for in history books. Of course, historians are very biased, they're very liberal biased these days. They make lists of best presidents and all that. But I think categorically, if you're being honest with yourself, there's no you can nothing but put Carter near the very very bottom of all presidents. So the public is able to pay tribute to the former president, and they were right outside the Capitol as people will go to see his body, which is lying in state. But again, it's going to be putting that behind him. It's like I said, it's interesting that he would die and at the end of President Biden's presidency, because hopefully we're looking at the death of that kind of policy, of that weakness that we've had. We can bring strength back into the White House, just like we did in after the election of 1980. Very similar, getting back to that America First philosophy, that say, hey, we are the United States of America. We are going to control negotiations. We are going to put our people's needs first, not other countries. And that's what people did in 1980. That's exactly what they did in 2024. And so, maybe like Carter had to set up the emergence of Ronald Reagan. We needed Biden to set us up for a second term of Donald Trump, which is hopefully going to bring this country back on the right track. All right, we're going to take a break right here. When we get back, I want to talk about the wildfires again, so give you some updates on that. But even more is, what's even more interesting is Biden's um, his press conference at like yesterday regarding the fires. It took a weird turn once he started going off the notes. It's going to be very interesting. You're going to want to hear this. So keep it tuned here to the full story on WYAB 103.9. Everything. So All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9 as we get into our next story. So, we spent a good time yesterday talking about the wildfires that are going on in Southern California, and it has become, it's uh, gotten even worse. It continues to grow as firefighters battle control a series of major fires that are still going on in the Los Angeles area early today that have now killed 5 people, ravaged communities from the Pacific coast to Pasadena, and sent thousands of people frantically fleeing their homes. Ferocious winds that drove the flames and led to chaotic evacuations have calmed somewhat and were not expected to be as powerful during the day today. And that could provide an opportunity for firefighters to make some kind of progress reining in blazes that have hopscotched across the sprawling region, including massive ones in Pacific Palisades and Altanita, sorry. The latest flames broke out Wednesday evening in the Hollywood Hills area, striking closer to the heart of the city and the roots of its entertainment industry and putting densely populated neighborhoods on edge during exceptionally windy and dry conditions. In fact, it wasn't that far from the famed the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the stars on the ground. You know, the stars on the ground. Um, Within a few hours, firefighters had made progress on the Sunset Fire. Los Angeles Fire Department Captain Eric Scott said they were able to keep the fire in check because, quote, we hit it hard and fast, and Mother Nature was a little nicer to us today than she was yesterday. And that's a big part of this is, again, they don't know how these fires started, but with nature, it's hard to fight nature, and it's really you just gotta work with it. It's you got to work with what those winds are doing. Otherwise, it's not much you can do. If those winds are picking up like they were yesterday, they're 60, 70 miles per hour yesterday with the Santa Ana winds. There's not much you can do outside of try to create fire lines, which is hard to do in an urban population. People watering down their houses is about it, and then hope for the best. Otherwise, you can't do much. So I'm glad the winds are starting to go down, and they are able to get into certain areas. But nearly 2,000 homes, businesses, and other structures have now been destroyed in those blazes called the Palisades and Eaton fires, and the number is expected to only increase. And the 5 deaths recorded so far were from the Eaton fire. But even more interesting is President Biden. He was in that area before the fires, or right around when the fires started, to dedicate 2 more national monuments. And finally, he's kind of hidden away for a while. He just kind of stayed in his hotel, and then finally he started making some remarks, which kind of turned interesting. So first, this is how I want to play for you how it started, and then I'm gonna fast forward. Gavin Newsom spoke in between there. I'm not gonna play Gavin Newsom stuff, just because it's nothing real newsworthy about what he said. But President Biden is. So if you're on the if you're on the live stream, we'll play. You'll be able to see the video itself. But here he is. How he started off. It's very it's almost sad when you watch this guy, and you almost feel bad for him. Yeah, you can ask. You can ask. You can definitely ask the how that's working for the people in North Carolina, especially if you had Trump signs, right? But again, seeing him kind of struggle right there, as well as having a hard time just reading the. He's just reading a some note cards. But I want to fast forward now because it took a very interesting turn. So Gavin Newsom speaks for a little while, for about a minute or so, and then it goes back to Biden, and he just kind of took a weird turn here. So I'm going to play that for you, as you can see how that turned out. But anyway, that's just what's going on with me, guys. In case you're wondering, I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, that is it is just it's like what is going on right now with what you're doing? That is it just blows my mind. My son's house. I'm Hunter Biden. We all know Hunter. The one that I just let go scot free after being a drug abuser, lying on federal firearms forms and evading taxes. That guy who's about to get sentenced. And I not only pardoned him for those crimes, but anything he's done in the last 10 years, the most wide-ranging pardon in history. That guy. And he said his house. We thought his house burned down, but it didn't. So we're good. But he did have a new baby, or I have a new grandbaby or great grandbaby, whatever he said. I was like, what? What are you talking about? And this can be remembered for all the wrong reasons. Like what? People are dying, man. Like there have been 5 people who have been killed. More than 30,000 have been evacuated as a result of a fire that has consumed a total of 22 square miles. And that is what you're talking about? That's what you're going to go with? At the very end, it's like, I mean, I guess he doesn't care. I mean, he's leaving. I mean, he'll be gone. He'll be gone in 11 days, right? So what does he care? But at least, I mean, you are still the president. At least try to show you care. And heck, he could even get he could hardly get the words out when he was reading that note card, but he want to let you know, hey, Hunter Biden, his house. We all love Hunter, right? Doesn't everybody love Hunter? Well, in case you're wondering, his house, it's good. He lives down there in Southern California. His house is good. All that money they've gotten from Ukraine. I'm sure he lives in a great place. As we talk about, the Palisades area is one of the most exclusive and expensive areas in Los Angeles. So really good to know that out of all of this, Hunter Biden's house was saved, and done, and Biden gets a new great grandchild. All good. It's going to be remembered for the wrong reasons, though. But that's the guy. That's the guy who has been running your country for the last 4 years. And how great is it to finally get back to someone with common sense? And speaking of someone with common sense, President-elect Trump criticized Gavin Newsom for resisting a plan to send more water to the state's agricultural Central Valley because of concerns it would imperil endangered species in a Truth Social post on Wednesday. Trump said of Newsom in his post yesterday, quote, he wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt by giving it less water, in parentheses. It didn't work, but didn't care about the people of California. Now the ultimate price is being paid because they haven't had enough water. It dries out. I guess that's what he's getting at in that point. So Trump has sided with farmers over environmentalists in a long-running dispute over California's scarce water resource. Like I said, I guess he's talking about a lot of that had to do with agriculture getting water to crops. I don't know if he's also going at, hey, because of that, there's a dry area. I mean, Los Angeles is not really that, but again, it does bring up an interesting point because water conservation in California is a real problem because it's mostly desert in the state, in the southern part of the state, in the southeast part of the state. And they have to get a lot of the water from these lakes that are drying up. And it's what do you, how do you solve that issue? Again, I don't know what that had necessarily had to do with the fire itself, but if there's anything that Gavin Newsom can do, he's going to try to make things more complicated and ruin it as much as possible. But like I said, Gavin Newsom was there, sitting next to the president, and it's this guy. I've talked about Gavin Newsom before. I'm not gonna lay a natural disaster on any politician. To me, it's what's gonna matter. What happens afterwards. Natural disasters a lot of times aren't preventable, or at least the start of them aren't preventable. It's not, like I said, natural disasters happen. Politicians aren't all powerful. They may think they're all powerful. They can't stop nature, despite how powerful they think they are. But it's how bad it happened, right? So anytime these natural disasters happen, it's we look at, well, what made it so bad in this case, right? Why did these fires spread so quickly? Is it something that we have done, right? So we think about, for instance, Katrina. We think about the levees that had failed because they'd only been rated to Category 3 hurricane, for instance, and were not designed to stand up to something like Hurricane Katrina, which then caused massive flooding throughout the city. So we think about, okay, yes, we couldn't stop the hurricane, but we probably could have prevented a lot of the destruction or a lot of the flooding if we had taken better precautions, or we had planned for this beforehand. Same thing with Southern California, in that it is a place that is prone to wildfires. It just is. Again, it's a very dry place. Like I said, very beautiful, great weather, but very dry at the end of the day. So it's building codes, things, how you build houses. We're talking about Palisades. There's a lot of new houses. Should there be regulations on fire retardant materials being used to build houses because it's in a high zone, or a zone that is very highly susceptible to wildfires, and start looking at things like that, or have certain things in the city to, like, some kind of natural fire breaks, to try to prevent it. Sort of like after the Great Chicago Fire, the city learned how to build their buildings to try to prevent that. If you remember the Great Chicago Fire, it pretty much wiped out almost the whole city of Chicago, back when it happened, and it really changed the city, how they did their architecture after that, and really created the buildings that you see there now. Afterwards, building it to prevent another kind of fire just rapidly spreading. But again, sometimes nature is nature. And despite our best efforts as human beings to try to prevent it, it will always, if nature wants to, it will always defeat us. No matter what we try to do, you can have the best protections in the world, and it can still beat you because it is nature, and we are not more powerful than nature. The Democrats like to think that we control the environment and we can control heat rising and all these other things that are happening because we're this big, powerful species, but we really aren't. We're so weak in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of nature, and how powerful it can be. But like I said, we'll see how as this fire starts getting under control, as they try to combat this fire, because that's right now step one, is combating the fire, trying to get federal assistance is great. But again, I'm really going to be curious, though, to me, from a federal standpoint, is how much assistance they get compared to what people in Tennessee and North Carolina got after the hurricanes last year. Because you have a liberal stronghold with a bunch of rich people, very, very, very wealthy people, versus red states with working class people. Nowhere, they don't have the glitz and glamour of Southern California. So I'd be curious to see what the dichotomy is, what the difference is between the two. And President Biden and the Democrats are going to be, uh, and because currently they run FEMA for the next 9 days, so trying to or start next 11 days, so trying to scramble to get as much money they can to their friends down there. As we know, Hunter Biden lives there, as Joe Biden just said. So I'm going to be very curious to see that dichotomy again. We know, right after what happened there, FEMA said, "Oh, we're out of money. We don't have enough money to help these people." And then we also had, if they have a Trump sign, don't give them aid. You remember all that craziness. So I'd be curious, to see exactly how much aid these rich people get, these rich Democrats in Southern California, versus the red state working class people did. Because something tells me there's going to be quite a change and quite a difference. Okay, we're going to take another break right here. When we get back, I want to talk about Meta and AKA Facebook, and them finally announcing they're getting rid of the the kind of the fact checking that they had. I say fact checking. I say that with air quotes because it wasn't fact checking. It was people align with their agenda or we're going to cancel you. Fact checking, I guess. It was agenda checking is more likely what it was. So I want to talk about that and kind of the development of that, and again how Elon Musk can play a role in that. And now that Donald Trump's becoming a president, are they finally learning their lessons? Or are they just scared of a Donald Trump presidency after they have actively, and we know they actively have worked against him? If you want to call in during the break, number 601-879-0002. Keep it tuned to the full story on WYAB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9. Quickly, before we get into the Facebook story, I was just looking and I saw another article where we just talked about Trump. In Truth Social, talking about Newsom and his plans for the water conservation, hurting, not helping the situation any down in Southern California. Well, now Governor Newsom is firing back at Donald Trump for those comments. Trump also spoke with reporters after attending meetings Wednesday on Capitol Hill and accused Newsom of, quote, not doing a good job, but noting they worked well together and would again when he takes office later this month. He said, "It's very sad because I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out from the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish. For the sake of smelt, the fish, they have no water. It's a mistake of the governor, and you could say the administration." So Newsom's press office released a statement on social media following Trump's remark, saying there was a reason for not using the pumps. He said LADWP, I guess Los Angeles Department of Water something, said that because of the high water demand, pump stations at lower elevations did not have enough pressure refill tanks at higher elevations, and the ongoing fire hampered the ability of crews to access the pump, Newsom wrote on X. His office added that the city used water tenders to supply waters, which is a common tactic in wildland firefighting. Newsom's office also dismissed claims that there is a water shortage. He said, broadly speaking, there is no water shortage in Southern California right now, despite Trump's claims that he would open some imaginary spigot, is what Newsom's office said. The office posted a number of quotes from California officials saying water reliability and water supply are stable. Like you can believe, I mean, you're going to believe that the governor's own departments, of course, they're going to agree with him. It's like, look, it's like we're going to talk about fact checking in just a second. That's like having a fact checker work for you, checking your facts. My own fact checker who I pay. Look, he says I'm right. And so it's like I said, him saying that there is no water shortage in Southern California, or California in general, is just straight out false. They do have to divert water for these they're diverting it for fish, as Donald Trump talked about, and not giving it to the farmers. So if you're having to ration water, if you're having to determine, hey, whether the fish get it or whether the farmers get it, that inherently means that you have a water shortage. You don't have enough water to supply the need. Now the question is, what exactly is that need? And what is a bigger need? That could be something that's argued, but to say, hey, we have no water shortage, well, that's just patently false. I mean, we've known that for a long time. I mean, water conservation is an important part. It's something that should happen in California, right? So, how can you say, you can say, oh, we don't have a water shortage, and then say we need to conserve water. Those two things are mutually exclusive. Of course, my thing is, we're talking about the Palisades and the Hollywood elite down there with their green lawns. Green lawns aren't really supposed to exist in Southern California. So if they have a green lawn, they're using water to water it, which to me is one of the biggest wastes of water there can be. If you get a place that's short on water, then watering your lawn should completely be banned. I've always been a fan of that, because you have to conserve it, right? I mean, you're talking about a population that is greater than the natural resources can support. So you got to make sure you're putting that water to where it needs, in which case, to me, agriculture can be more important than fish, especially the little smelt fish. Now, if it was some other fish that's also economically important, then then maybe you should look at the fish, right? My thing is, are you doing it just for fish reasons, or are you doing it for economic reasons? Because at the end of the day, people have to eat, people need jobs. Now, that's to say, what any of that has to do with the wildfires, I don't know. They both kind of got into it there about water conservation. But again, I don't know exactly how for either of their sides, that has to do much with fighting the wildfire. Because those are kind of two separate things. With water for firefighting, because it's hard to use those things when you got such a wildfire that's blazing so fast. Fire hydrants aren't going to be much help when the fire is literally going at the pace that it's going. We're talking acres per minute at this point, like really fast. So that's not going to help you much, outside of planes, right? And planes can actually or helicopters can actually gather water from the ocean to dump on it as well. So you don't need fresh water to put out a flame. Salt water works just as good as fresh water in dousing a flame. Anyway, I don't want to go too much down there, but I just saw that as they both kind of him and Newsom both get into it. But Newsom, as I've always said, is one of the most dangerous people in the country. All right, I want to move to our next story, which is Meta Facebook is no longer doing any kind of fact checking. So this was a big deal in the last couple of years, especially in the 2020 election. So Meta Chief Executive Officer Mark Zuckerberg on Tuesday announced changes to content moderation on Facebook and Instagram, long sought by free-thinking people, I would say. Incoming President Donald Trump said the new approach was probably due to threats he made against the technology mogul. The move to replace third-party fact-checking with user-written community notes, similar to those used on Trump backer Elon Musk's social platform X, is the latest example of a media company moving to accommodate the incoming administration. He can force people to do things. Again, that's the amazing thing about Donald Trump. Not just people like Zuckerberg, but foreign leaders as well. It comes on the 4-year anniversary of Zuckerberg banning Trump from his platforms after the January 6th attack on U.S. Capitol. It's just so funny. You go from banning him to caving to him. It's amazing what power can do. But I'm going to play for you real quickly. His announcement about releasing or getting rid of some of the fact checking. So here is Mark Zuckerberg. It would help if I actually put the volume on the video.
On Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. Hey everyone, I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms.
So, Zuckerberg's almost starting to sound like a conservative there, talking about free expression. It's just funny. It's just funny to me how someone can change from how someone can sorry I was getting the screen how someone can change from we're going to ban Donald Trump to hey these last elections have really shown me something. I'm scared out of my wits of what's going to happen to me. So I'm going to let go. I'm going to get back to common sense and let people freely express their ideas. It's just the complete 180 of this is just it's just remarkable. I mean, again, it shows what Donald Trump, the effect that he can have. And it's not. I mean, I say Donald Trump. It's not really Donald Trump. It's what Donald Trump represents. It's the people that voted him in. I think Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, he's not an idiot, right? Unlike some of the Democrats who just can't get a hint, right? Merkin, or some of the other people, right, who just can't get a hint that the country has spoken. They have shown what their priorities are in this last election. They showed how they're tired of the legacy media, how they're tired of being censored, how they can't, and how you're just canceled for having any kind of opinion that doesn't fit within a certain narrative. The majority of Americans are tired of that. And at least Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know how he was dressed. He was looking very weird in that picture. I don't know what he was going with, but I'll give him credit. And like, he's not an idiot, right? This guy recognizes the shift in tone, for people and, realizing that, hey, crap, I may have hitched my boat to the wrong, or hitched my wagon to the wrong horse here. Um, so maybe I'm gonna do the 180 and get back to free speech, which would have should have been with to begin with. Again, that's one of the reasons I created the full story to begin with, 10 years ago. It was back in 2015 when I started the full story was to kind of go through all that because there is so much falseness out there, but it can't be a third party that decides what's true or what's not true. It has to be you. That's part of your responsibility that you have is to make sure you research things before having an opinion, before jumping to an opinion. Now, do most people do that? No. But again, our country was founded on the idea of free speech, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be 100% accurate speech. That's just part of it. I mean, when you have complete free speech, that's going to happen. You're gonna have people that are misleading. You're going to have things that aren't true. It's just part of it. It's one of the giveaways you have to have with free speech is that if there's not a government entity telling you what to say, then you're going to have a variety of viewpoints and facts. Aren't black and white either. A lot of times, right? It's how you perceive facts can be quite different, and that's where Facebook got off on the wrong foot. Is that they wanted facts to be perceived only a certain way, and it just happened to be the liberal way. I say just happened. It was purposefully just on the liberal way, and I guess the Democrats had to think they're going to be in power forever when they try to control all these narratives. And again, people were canceled. You couldn't have any kind of opinion whatsoever, and people just they got tired of it. And as Zuckerberg says there, this last election really opened my eyes. Good, he's very open about it. Like I said, I give that guy credit for coming out like he is. Again, it's not to me, it's not sincere whatsoever. Because again, he wouldn't have done it in the first place if he actually cared about those things. But he does care about himself, which is obvious. And he recognizes that change in tides, that change in attitudes. It's like, you know what? I better change with it, because if you don't change with it, you're going to lose out. And, obviously Elon Musk was the first one to do this. So when he bought Twitter and just completely changed the culture completely over there, to make it a free speech platform and let people fact check themselves. If someone post a fact or a false fact or a misleading fact, then someone can comment on it, right? Or that's what they're going to do. Community notes, right? Say, hey, that's not true. Here's what's true, right? And I remember, I know seeing those little fact checks that Facebook would put there, and they're often wrong. Okay, we have to take. I'm sorry, wasn't paying attention to the clock. We have to take a break right here. Keep it tuned to the full story on WYB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9 as we get to this day in history. So on this day, January 9th, 2007, the iPhone was revealed. So Apple CEO Steve Jobs announced the iPhone to the Macworld Convention in San Francisco, prompting an enthusiastic reaction from customers. The iPhone reinvented the idea of the smartphone. Its use of touchscreen, combination of a cellular phone, iPod, and wireless computer that connect to the internet was revolutionary. And I'll never forget that because it was quite cool that you could see the internet on your phone. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. We'll see you again tomorrow. But until then, my name is Matthew Bishop, and you have heard the full story.